Welcome to the Insomnia Project. Sit back, relax, and listen as we have a conversation about the mundane. One thing we can promise you is that our conversation will be less than fascinating so that you can feel free to listen and sleep. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Marco Timpano.
And I'm your co-host, Nidhi Khanna. Marco, we've sat in a number of rooms lately that have had pretty eclectic wallpaper.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on wallpaper? Is it something that you gravitate towards, or do you prefer just a painted room?
Well, it's interesting that you should mention wallpaper because there's that expression, watching wallpaper paste dry, or is it watching paint dry?
I believe it's watching paint dry.
Okay, so for me, I prefer a painted wall to a wallpapered wall. That said, there's some pretty outstanding looking wallpaper, some wallpaper that makes you feel like it's marble or whatever sort of aesthetic it's trying to be. I know that we wallpapered a wall in our house, and there's a lot that goes behind or that goes into wallpapering a wall.
Tell me about that. How do you wallpaper a wall?
Have you ever wallpapered?
I have not. I used to have wallpaper in my childhood home.
Mm-hmm.
However, since then, I haven't really been in a place that has wallpaper. It's usually painted walls.
Right.
So please do tell me
I
how.
can tell you that, there's a lot of different tools one would use when they wallpaper, and different types of wallpaper require different sort of techniques. So if you go to your local, say, hardware store or paint store and purchase an easy to do wallpaper, the adhesive will be right on the back of the wallpaper. You would then put it into a tray of warm water or lukewarm water, and the glue would activate. And there's a bunch of different tools one could use when you're putting the wallpaper on the wall. So there's kind of like rollers and sponges that allow you to sort of sponge out all the moisture from the wallpaper. And then there's a tool that sort of looks like a squeegee that allows you to get all the air bubbles out of the wallpaper. Because have you ever seen wallpaper that wasn't done correctly that has air pockets in it?
I have noticed that before, yes. I remember my cousin tried to wallpaper her bedroom when she was younger, and it ended up exactly how you just described
Right.
it, with a bunch of sort of air bubbles sticking out from the wallpaper. So
it can be very tricky, especially when you're doing corners or you're trying to do an area that has like a cutout in it. So for example, around a window, or if there's a sort of a feature in the room that you're working on that you want to wallpaper around or incorporate into the room that you're wallpapering. So it can be quite tricky, and I know that getting those air bubbles out of the wallpaper is one of the hardest aspects of wallpapering. Now, the other part that becomes difficult is some wallpapers will have certain patterns. And so from one leaf of the wallpaper, you've got to match up the continuous,
right.
if there's like a striation, or
Sure.
let's say there's a snowflake that you're trying to match up, or a branch of a tree that continues. Right. You've got to line them up perfectly, because if you're off even just a little bit, your eye, when you walk in that room, will catch that imperfection or that non-lining up of the wallpaper.
of course, it's sort of it is an art in a way.
Oh, without a doubt. And the other thing about wallpaper is that wallpaper can be dated So,
Right. I found that when I was looking at apartments recently
right.
to live in, some of the apartments had wallpaper, and you can tell right away what era the wallpaper sort of comes from. And you're absolutely right. Wallpaper from the 80s, for
Sure.
example, can really make a beautiful space seem very dated now,
Right.
because it's so different from the wallpaper patterns that we would put up today.
Well, it's interesting. My grandmother had wallpaper in her house from the 60s,
Oh,
and it
wow.
had like a velvety texture to it. So there was like little designs in it that were raised, and when you touch them, they felt soft like velvet.
That actually sounds very luscious.
It's interesting because now it would be quite in or on vogue
Yeah.
because it's something so unique and interesting or retrospective.
Marco, at the top of the show, a few shows ago, our listeners will remember that we talked quite extensively about the official cookie for the city of Calgary, and not the city of Calgary, excuse me,
For red deer.
yes, of Red Deer. And we then said we were going to
The
try
caramel
a
surprise
caramel
is the
surprise.
name of that cookie.
You got it. We then said that we were going to contact our mayor in the city of Toronto.
That's right.
John Tory, and ask him about perhaps developing a City of Toronto official cookie. Do you want to update our listeners about the
course.
progress we've made about that?
So we've had a couple of people contact us, or we've had a couple of our listeners ask what's going on with regards to the official cookie of Toronto. As you can imagine, when you're trying to do something like this, it's a process and it doesn't happen overnight, but we were happy because the email that we sent to our mayor's office did in fact receive a response, and it looks like they were inquiring with regards to this and that they want to set something up perhaps to see what the public thinks about an official cookie for the city of Toronto where we broadcast from. And so as it stands, the wheels are in motion. Of course, we'll keep our listeners updated with regards to that. It looks quite promising.
It does. It's exciting. It's almost a little too exciting even for the Insomnia Project.
Sure.
But
We'll see what happens. We'll keep our listeners informed. And as we said previously, if you have any idea for a cookie that you would like to see represent this city of ours, drop us a line. You can go to our Twitter, or you can tweet us at Listen and Sleep.
Marco, when was the last time you were on a train?
Well, it's funny you should say that because this past weekend, I actually took the train to go to London, Ontario.
Right.
And I was there for about 4 days for work because I decided to take the train so that I could free up the car for use by my wife. And I said, I'll just take the train to London. And I hadn't been on a train in quite some time, and I realized how much I enjoyed traveling by train.
What part of the journey when you're on a train do you enjoy the most?
It's interesting. The thing that I liked about, or the thing that I do appreciate about train travel is that it's forced time for yourself, whereas if I was driving, those 2 hours plus that I would be in a car driving and, keeping aware of what's around me and what lies ahead, I was able to use for whatever I wanted to on the train. So I was able to read, surf the internet because I had there's Wi-Fi on the train.
Of course.
It was a real pleasurable experience, and the seats were quite comfortable and roomy, unlike a lot of plane travel. And it was nice seeing all the little towns that we were passing as well.
I quite enjoy train travel as well. And similarly to you, I find it's one of the few times that you can really zone out because you're not worried about where's your passport?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be able to get your luggage out of the carousel when you arrive, etc., etc.? It's really a different experience, particularly when you're going those shorter distances, like from Toronto to London, Ontario.
I once traveled first class to Montreal on Via Rail,
Oh, wonderful.
and it was outstanding. It was one of the most civilized things I have done in a long while. It actually felt like plane travel from many years ago, in that, like you said, you just got on quick, all your stuff was there. They served you food and water. It was really large. The time just went by so quickly, and it was just so wonderful. You saw out the large windows. There was plenty of room to walk around. There was a dining cart, so you really got to explore the train.
And the view is quite nice as well,
Mhm.
because when you're driving from Toronto to Montreal, it's not that scenic of a route
Right.
as compared to some
Well,
other
'cause you're
places.
you're on the highway, so
Exactly. However, when you're on the train, you do get a glimpse of the of the lake. So it's quite a different experience. It's a nice, relaxing experience, really.
sure. A lot of the seats will fold out completely, so you could actually lie on the
Do
train
they
as
really
well.
do
Yeah,
that?
some of them. Yeah, It didn't seem like, and then we said, let's see how far back these seats recline, and they reclined quite a bit, that you could actually comfortably fall asleep or just rest. And
Oh, I didn't know
yeah,
that.
it was really quite wonderful. I have to say that. What would be really neat is if we broadcasted one of our podcasts, or recorded one of our podcasts on a train, on a via train, say to Montreal.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah, and let our listeners really get the experience of being on a train and feeling the sounds of the train, because even the motions of the train, which is a monotonous sort of forward moving motion that just keeps on sort of rolling forward, can be quite relaxing. And whereas I cannot drift off on a plane, I can certainly drift off on a train.
I agree completely. I find I very easily fall asleep on a train. I'm the type of person who will fall asleep in the passenger seat of a car,
Oh,
but I'm usually the driver
right.
on trips, and so there's something very nice and calming and soothing for me to be able to just fall asleep.
Where's the furthest you've ever traveled from point A to point B on a train?
On a
Anywhere in
train.
the world?
I want to say that's a really good question. I'm not quite sure. I've been across Europe in trains.
Right.
I've taken the Eurostar, for
Yes.
example. I used to live in Italy for a while, so I took a lot of trains there. I also lived in France for a bit, so that's also another train country. And then I've also taken the train in India.
Oh, I see.
And so I'm guessing, actually, probably in India, I've had some pretty long trips on the train. How about you?
I know that we took a train from St. Petersburg to Moscow,
Oh, wow.
and it was an overnight train, and this was many years ago, and it was a pretty long destination. It was one of these older trains, but when I say older trains, I mean like 1920s train, because everything was kind of wooden and lacquered, and you could just tell that everything on the train was made really well and sturdy, and not out of new materials that you're used to seeing. We had little berths too, and even the way they folded down, you could tell that they were older.
When you describe trains like that, Marco, I get two images
Sure.
in my head. One is, of course, the Hogwarts Express.
Oh, of course, yes.
But the other one is the Agatha Christie book, The
Okay.
Murder on the Orient
Express.
Express. I
Sure.
always think of that when I'm imagining sort of the 1920s
Mm-hmm.
train experience, although I highly doubt there were that many
It-
murders on
no,
trains.
there wasn't. Not on that particular trip, but it wasn't as elegant. So it wasn't. It was a Russian train, and it wasn't designed for high-end travel. At least not the one that I was on
Sure.
at that time. But it was quite an experience, and I have traveled far distances in Europe as well. I think I did Paris to, I want to say Rome or something in one stint.
Oh, wow.
And that
I've
was-
never done an overnight on a train. I feel like that must be a different experience as well.
It is. I mean, certainly, having a place to lie down while the vehicle or the transportation you're traveling in is going so quick. It's definitely something it takes a little getting used to, but once you're there, like, it can really lull you into a state of relaxation, and that's certainly what happens to me when I'm on trains. I think perhaps that's why I love train travel, because with that mode of transportation, I find it easiest to relax and drift off, whereas car, plane, and boat to a lesser extent, it's much more trickier for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'd love to go on those trains that they have through the Rockies where the roof of the train is glass so that
Yeah.
you can have a wonderfully picturesque and natural escape, really, through this train experience.
They say it's one of the most beautiful ways, or one of the most beautiful places to see, is going through the Rockies on the train. And it's certainly one of the things that I have on my bucket list, would be to do that and see the Rockies by train.
What else is on your bucket list,
Oh,
Marco?
Nidhi, that's a great question. I haven't given it too much thought, to be honest with you, but certainly I would love to travel to Africa and, do some sort of safari expedition. I've never sort of done that. How about yourself?
For me, travel is definitely on there, but I think also just some smaller, not smaller, that's not true, but some more basic bucket list goals
Okay.
would be to have, either a cottage or to have a home in a warm climate that I could go to, or to be able to get a tattoo. That's on a bucket list.
There you go.
But you've never wanted to, skydive or do anything?
I don't know. Nothing with heights will work for me.
Same here.
So that's not on my list. Scuba diving has always been something that I've been curious about. I'd love to go into one of those tanks, or one of those, what do you call them? They're like cages, and be near great white sharks and just see that kind of stuff. Yeah, but I think you need to be able to scuba dive to do that, and so
Right.
one would precede the other. But yeah, if we're talking bucket list, that would probably be one of the things on it. I also love going to restaurants, like great restaurants,
Oh, yeah.
especially of great chefs, or just like places that are renowned for their food.
I agree. Food for me is an experience when I'm traveling. If I need to have a unique food experience
Right.
in order for it to be a successful
Right.
trip or adventure, really.
I think it's part of the adventure when you travel, in particular, is to go to various restaurants and try the local cuisine and stuff than you wouldn't get in a restaurant in your own hometown.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. Marco, we're currently recording from an area that has a lot of office supplies around it.
Right.
Do you have a particular office supply that you can't do without?
Oh, this is such a great question. First of all, I love office equipment. And I just recently bought a staple remover because my staple remover, I used it so much over the years that the teeth of the staple remover have gotten, I don't want to say dull, but they've sort of warped, and therefore the staple remover was no longer great at removing the staples. It would chew up the paper. So I recently bought a staple remover to replace that one, but I think my number one office tool or office equipment would be the stapler itself. I love having a good stapler. I don't have a good stapler.
Right.
It often will jam. So I'm on the lookout for a great stapler, one that can go through papers, many papers, and make a nice seal. What about for yourself? What would be your number one office equipment?
So I have a dual purpose pen where it's a pen on one side and a highlighter in the cap.
Yes.
I think you were using it actually before. And I never thought that I needed a pen with a highlighter in the cap. However, now that I have it, I need to have that as my only pen. Because,
Really?
because I find particularly if I'm looking through a report or a script,
Sure.
I'll make my notes in pen, but then I have the added bonus of being able to highlight particular sentences or words that I find I need to highlight. So for me, that wonderful pen has really changed my outlook on office supplies.
That's pretty excellent. I mean, I love pens, and I often am given pens. I recently received a 7-year pen. Have you ever heard of a 7-year pen?
No, what's that?
I hadn't either, but this Christmas I received a 7-year pen. And what it is it's a pen that the ink will last 7 years. So the pen should last you 7 years before
wow.
it runs out.
That's sort of like an astronaut's pen.
Kind of. It's a really interesting looking pen. I'll show it to you after, and we'll take a photo and we'll put it on our Twitter so that you can see what it looks like. But one interesting thing about me is I like blue ink in my pens. I don't like black ink in my pens.
Really?
Yes.
Why is that?
I don't know why that is. I just prefer blue ink to black ink. I think because oftentimes lines are black, and so it's black on top of black, and I like the delineation of the two colors on the page.
Sure.
How about yourself? Do you prefer black ink or blue ink?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, I actually think I prefer black ink.
Oh, really?
I do. I find black ink, there's something a little bit more elegant
Okay.
with it, and it's a little less jarring. I definitely don't like anything other than black or blue ink. So when I see, obviously red ink is,
Right.
you know, it makes you feel like there's all these errors on the page. But I'm not a big fan of the green ink or the purple ink or all these new ink fads that people have. I like to keep it classic.
I don't mind those colors, but I certainly wouldn't, sign documents in anything other than blue or black. But my preference is definitely blue, and I don't like a thick, heavy pen. And oftentimes when you're gifted pens, they're the bigger, the thicker, like a Mont Blanc pen. It's the last pen I would ever want. I don't like the way they feel in my hand. I don't like the weight of them. And I know they're, very expensive pens, but that's not the pen for me.
Well, that's good to know, Marco, because next Christmas you won't be getting a Mont Blanc pen from me. However, I have to disagree with you with regards to the thickness of the pen.
Okay.
I prefer a chunkier pen.
So then I need to find you a chunky pen that has a highlighter on the opposite end.
You got it.
Well, we hope we helped you find some relaxation on today's podcast. I just want to welcome our new subscribers and wish you a pleasant night.
As always, we're broadcasting from Toronto, and the Insomnia Project is produced by Drumcast Productions.